Hello.
Hello.
We thought we were streaming before, but apparently we were not.
It was that uncomfortable moment of silence.
It was.
Got us.
That awkward pause.
Yeah.
So we're just checking something real quick because we are looking to where is? Oh, let me get home. Check this.
There we go.
Check this stream. So we're doing the stream live now, but where are we live? Let's double check. That's what I want to try to find out. Edit destination. Let's see if that shows us. Unable to connect. Fucking Rumble. Piece of shit. All right. Let me
Should we restart?
No, it's Rumble for some reason is not cooperating. Let me see if I can get on. Let me see if I can get on our account and just start it for mother effing sake, because I set it up and it said test. It said it was good.
Mother trucker.
So yeah, we may not. It should.
Hello, Rodri. Hello.
Hello.
Don't mind us.
We can't see you, but you can see us.
Oh, Dutch lady lava. Working.
Yay.
What are you doing working on a Sunday, Dutch? Oh, you're talking about. Oh, he's talking about.
Yeah, you
the
can see
show's
us.
Working on.
There we go. I like it.
I thought you were working, Dutch. I'm like, what are you doing working on a Sunday?
All right. So let's see. So if we go live. So we're trying to see if we can set up a new stream. Hello. See, so it's just live streaming. So this is where I went before. Go to.
So while we're doing that,
set up a live stream.
Our topics this week are going to be the
right,
Parkland shooting that happened back in 2018 in Florida. And then we also are going to go over the red flag law.
Right. And really what we're going to talk about as far as Parkland is the stuff leading up to Parkland based on the gun laws and see how that actually developed and stuff. Which after Parkland started a whole bunch of extra gun laws trying to be added to legislature.
Yeah, because I'll be honest with you, until this topic came up, I had no idea of the whole red law thing. I knew about the red law, but I didn't know everything. Like, just whatever the news tells you is like the little bullet points. But once I started diving into this, it was just like, wow. I mean, it's pretty intense.
It is. It was. So I was going to do, if everybody was cool with it, I was going to do like a couple of headlines, and we don't need to get into it. It's just headlines, make you go, and then we move on.
Got it.
All right. So one headline was, and so I got these from the left-leaning news organization. So therefore, people don't think I'm cherry picking into conservative stuff.
Gotcha.
All right.
Okay.
This one is ABC News. So thieves hit 3 7-Eleven stores in 20 minutes, hours after Gavin Newsom signed in a new smash and grab bill. So now he's going to get tough on crime.
Right.
And they said, okay, I got something for you. So they hit 3 7-Elevens in 20 minutes.
Yeah, get tough on this, buddy.
Right. But they found them later in an alley because they had too many Slim Jims and slushies, and they were just sick. So then they arrested them.
Oh,
If it was us, we chili dogs.
right.
Chili, yeah. Okay, that's a joke.
Oh
but
my
yeah,
God.
but so they hit it. So again, that's now you're gonna get tough on crime, but it's a little bit later than that. All right, CBS News: Alabama election officials have just made a discovery that voter registration has been active, or registration is inactive for thousands of potential non-citizens. Alabama Secretary of State says more than 3,200 voters in the state may not be U.S. citizens. But that's all conspiracy theory. That's not true. There's nobody voting that's not a U.S. citizen
Or alive.
or that's in the wrong district. That hasn't happened. All right, there you go.
We always had dead people been voting for years.
Well, dead people have been voting for years, but we've been voting dead people in.
That is true.
All right. And last but not least, here from USA Today. Harris' campaign has been changing headlines on Google online stories for better exposure. So they've been launching sponsored posts on Google that link to real news content from various publishers that feature customized headlines and descriptions crafted by her campaign. And one sponsor said the NPR's website features a headline, Harris will lower health costs. Another, Associated Press, VP Harris economic vision, lower costs and higher wages. And these advertisements were first reported by Axios, and now they've been reported by the USA, because the USA Today has been the biggest victim of all of the stuff.
Well,
Hello, Mr. Funk.
Hello.
Hello.
So that when Google was asked about it, Google said it's technically not illegal. But so that means I can go in, pick a news story, change the headline on it to make it look like it's good for me. Because you may not read the story, but you're going to see the headline.
correction. You won't be able to do it.
Oh yeah, not me.
Unbelievable. Fake
So-
news.
But so again, could you imagine if somebody else did that?
Oh, yeah.
A conservative did that?
Oh,
They would
yeah.
say you're manipulating, you're affecting
Coercion.
election, your election results, or changing the election process or whatever.
God.
Anyway, yeah, there you go. And that was by
Unbelievable.
USA Today. All three left-leaning news organizations. Apparently, USA Today was really pissed off about the fact that they were changing their headlines. Oh, and it was also reported by CBS News, but I didn't pick that one. That's the last story.
Gotcha. Wow. Okay. Well, that was interesting. So I guess we'll start off with our gun control portion of this. Gary, you were on this one as far as the FBI statement on shooting in Parkland, Florida. So what did you come up with that one?
Let me remove my glasses. All right. So here's so months before the shooting, a person close to Nicholas Cruz, who was the shooter, contacted FBI public access line, PAL. It's a PAL. Reporting concerns about him. The caller provided information about Cruz's gun ownership, the desire to kill people, erratic behavior, disturbing social media posts, and the potential of him conducting a school shooting, because apparently he had mentioned that before. Now, under established protocols, the information provided by the caller should have been assessed as a potential threat to life. The information then should have been forwarded to the FBI Miami field office, where appropriate investigation steps would have been taken. A second tip came in and identified herself as a close friend of the Cruz family, and the caller gave information of Cruz's references to ISIS, that he had threatened his mother with a rifle, had purchased several weapons, wanted to kill people, and he was going to explode, that he was mutilating small animals, and was concerned that Cruz had talked about it and might shoot up a school. And so a statement from the FBI, official statement, said, "We have determined that these protocols were not followed for the information received by PAL. The information was not provided to the Miami field office, and no further investigations were conducted at that time." Now, of that time, there were 23 911 incidents to the Cruz residence because of his violence and threats. But after the Parkland shooting happened, there was all these, the
Red flag.
red flag law was developed, came about, a bunch of other stuff. But here's the deal: so we could put additional gun control laws on the books that we're not going to follow. These have been in in place for a long time, and the FBI even admitted they didn't follow up on it. Broward County sheriffs said even based on the 23 911 incidents, they didn't keep a file on him and then provided that to the FBI as well. So, okay, if you're not going to follow the simplest of rules or laws that are on the books, by implementing another 2, 3, 5, 10, you think those are going to be? So the point is, it's not so much in the gun laws we have or don't have, or I guess don't have. It's the fact that people that's in the authority that's supposed to be or doing this didn't do their job. Mm-hmm. And as far as I know, and I know this because I watched the congressional hearing on this back when it happened. As far as they know, not one FBI agent was ever fired for not following up on this shit.
Wow, that's scary.
And as Andy well knows, the FBI has just, and believe me, there are some really good FBI agents. Do not get me wrong, all right, as a whole. But the FBI has, over the years, have shown such incompetence that it's insane. And now we're starting to look at like the social services. The Secret Service is now seems like they're following right behind them, as we've stated many times before here recently.
Well, I mean, one thing is you have to look at, I mean, at least what I'm thinking of is, you're right, there are a lot of good police officers and FBI agents, ATF agents, things like that are out there. I guess, do the cutbacks have anything to do with this? Like, we're going to the government's going to create all these laws and all these stopgaps, but do we have the manpower? Can we afford the manpower to actually follow through and revisit all these stopgaps? So one of the things I kind of thought was interesting is when I was doing my research on this as well, is it was back from, I think it was 2020 or 2019 to 2020, is there was a discovery that there were over 1,000 different red flags that were thrown up, and the FBI just never looked into them.
And I'll just say the Parkland shooting was before COVID.
Right.
So it was before really you had this huge decline in resources and budget and everything else.
Right.
So,
yeah, it's pretty crazy. Crazy. It's amazing. I mean, it still happens today, even though that there are red flag laws and things like that. So, I mean, I think more and more it comes down to citizens.
Well, the one point I'm going to bring up too, and it's understandable that you both have mentioned the FBI not responding, but what about the local police? Because they knew about it.
Right, but they didn't do anything.
Exactly.
About it.
My thing is this: a lot of that falls because, as we're going to get into, I'm sure, with red flag law, there is no federal red flag law.
It's states.
There is none. It has to do with states. And
it's been pushed by federal government, but
it hasn't. So that being said, there again, a lot of that onus comes on, in this particular case, Broward County.
Right.
So what is Broward County? Sorry, Wendy.
Yeah, get your ass up there.
Up.
I thought I turned you up.
Wrecked him. Oh, sorry.
Damn near killed him.
But so my personal opinion is a lot of that onus falls on the local sheriff. And it's like they just did this whole. I don't know if both of you guys saw it, because it's interesting you brought it up, but I don't have a lot of the information on it. But they're still working on the Uvalde shooting in Texas, and showing all the local law enforcement standing in the hall while the kid's still sitting there shooting, and the law enforcement's just kind of standing there. They had the one guy sitting there getting hand sanitizer on his hands while the guy's like in a classroom or something like that. So it's like,
well, you don't
I get
COVID when you're
exactly while there's an active shooter. So I mean, I do understand that the FBI failed as well, but a lot of that falls on local. And even in Parkland, you had the one sheriff guy, when he went into the school, went and hid.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I'm not doing that by myself. And it's like, okay, so it's your life over the kids, the kids that are getting there, and you got hired, okay, that is your job. And you're told, it's like a police officer. When you get hired to be a police officer, there is an expectation that you might not make it home that night. That something might pop up where you might actually have to take a bullet and not come back.
Right.
And that's exactly the same position they're in. And this ass, when the kid goes in Parkland, he goes and hides behind by concrete, and everybody's giving excuses. They're like, well, he was by himself.
Well, you talk about one-on-one against a shooter where you've had training.
Exactly.
Right.
You've had training. Well, it's just like that one. I'm getting a little stuck, but they had that one in what was it in North Texas?
That's Uvalde, I think.
Oh no, that's South Texas.
Okay.
They had this one in North Texas where the dude showed up. Didn't he busted right in the door.
Are you talking about the police officer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one's in, like, I think somewhere in North Texas, I think north of Dallas or something. Anyway, they had a potential school shooting. The guy came in with a gun. The police officer showed up, went right in the door, and went around and was listening to him and said, "Where is he?"
Right.
And he popped him. I forget what that was, but anyway, yeah, and he popped that dude.
Wow.
He got a couple shots. The kid got a couple shots off.
Sure.
This one wasn't very as much covered, which I find. I'll have to look it up and find out exactly where it was. But yeah, cop went right in, find him and popped his ass.
Where was the one where the trans person went into the
It was in
religious
Tennessee,
school, and it didn't take. They went in and got her. They took her out. I mean,
Right.
Unfortunately, she did some damage. She inflicted some damage, but it wasn't for very long. But looking at especially like Parkland, going back to like Parkland and Uvalde or whatever, and yes, they're. So I guess the question that poses itself is, how much should the federal government get into it, and how much is the onus of responsibility fall upon the local and state? Because if you don't want the federal government to stay out of people's lives or whatever, then my thing is that the onus falls upon the state and local.
Well,
However,
it has to start at the state level. That's the first line of defense. That's obviously, well, like I said, 23 incidents,
right?
911, and not only did you not flag anything, you didn't even keep a file on them.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Well, and how many have we heard? How many cases have we heard of that? Of like, especially school shootings. School shootings where kids have been like, well, we told so and so, or the parents knew about it. Well, the kid up in Wisconsin, where the parents got found guilty. I think
Which they should.
Exactly. And they bought the kid a gun, knowing
Right.
that he had.
Yeah,
issues.
that was a real brilliant
move.
Yeah, they look like they're.
Well, I mean, this is where it falls into the red flag. So, because of what happened in Parkland, then Congress is now, they created this whole red flag, the whole red flag thing. So, when you go in and you research, because again, I had no clue other than what I was given from, the media. There's a couple bullet points that were hit. But yeah, I mean, I can pretty much guarantee you that most people probably have no clue about a red law, or if they do, what actually is involved in it. So yeah, I kind of thought that was interesting. But then, okay, so yeah, now we have this red law. If we would have had it in place back in 2018, looking at everything that kind of panned out through it, it wouldn't have made a difference anyway.
Because the stuff wasn't reported.
Exactly. So
I mean, because like Tex said, the local sheriffs and stuff didn't do anything after 23 incidents. And these incidents were like violent. It wasn't like we had a disagreement.
Right.
They were incidents where he said, like he said before, he's going to kill his mother.
Right.
And all this other stuff. But we're going to be like, he's just whatever.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense.
And I don't know anybody. I know some people resigned. But I don't know anybody, and maybe I might be wrong on this, that got fired from Broward County Sheriff's.
Nobody got fired. Nobody got fired from the FBI as well.
Right. No. Yeah. All across the board, nobody got
Exactly.
whacked. And so, just real quick, so let me finish up, and then we can get to the red flag law. Because the only reason I want to say is, after this happened, they instituted some other stuff. They changed the age from 18 to 21 to buy guns. All right, that you have to actually register for. Average age of mass shooters is 33.4 years old. Wouldn't have done anything. Well, maybe for the Parkland one, but again,
right.
And most individuals engaged in mass shoot, and they did what they call assault rifle laws to restrict those, or to make more restrictive. Most individuals in mass shootings, handguns, 77.2%. Assault rifles, 25.1%. Now, again, and I'm going to say, one person is too many.
Right.
Right? But if we go by the statistics, we go by the data, then when you're attacking certain things, will you eliminate some things? Possibly.
Right.
But, yeah, it's not going to... I just don't think it's going to bring you exactly what you're hoping to bring.
I don't think it's ever going to bring what everybody's hoping for it to bring. You're always going to have guns, no matter what you do. And, I have never owned a gun. I don't know if I'd ever want to own one. I've never shot one. Well, wait a minute, I take that back. I think it was like 12. And I completely missed the target. Thank God we were in the woods, and to this day we have no idea where that bullet ever went to.
There's some bear walking around with a gippy leg.
Exactly.
Some bear.
Yeah.
Some person that hasn't been. This person's been missing since 19.
Yeah. So, but I'm not against guns. I am truly not against guns. If you want to own a gun, fine, own a gun. When I was doing some of my research, I was kind of broad. I started looking at federal law. And then I looked into Maryland as far as like the whole red flag thing and so on and so forth. So one of the biggest things that came up was the waiting period, that quote unquote cooling off period, which I found was interesting. My understanding is, so if I go in to buy a gun, I have a 7-day waiting period in the state of Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
Massachusetts was, I want to say 14-day. And then you had, there were like 1 or 2 states that were at 10, and then everybody else was at 7. I thought the funniest thing, well, not funny, but the craziest thing is, as far as a handgun, I have to wait 7 days. But if I go in and buy a rifle, I can pretty much walk out with it at that point in time.
But they also have shown that these people who do the mass shootings, these people plan.
Right.
They don't go out on a Friday night or Monday morning, go buy a gun and then go shoot up the school on Monday.
Right.
They plan this stuff for months. So again, unless you got a flag on, like some kind of psychological or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, they'll wait. I'll go apply for it. If I got to wait 7 days or 14 days,
right,
they'll wait, and then as soon as they get it, whatever.
Right.
Well, that's because and that's one of the points on piggyback on that is, I think a couple of the past shootings that we've had, that's exactly, they purchased their firearms legally.
Right.
So when you look at something like that, it's like if you have somebody that's never broken the law at all,
they're not going to pop up.
Exactly, they're not going to pop up.
Right.
That's like they always sit there and it could be with a number of things, but like buying weapons. It's like people, like for teachers in schools and daycare, they're like, well, we got to do a background check on them. And it's like, well, just because if they never broke the law, they're going to make the background check, but that's not to say that they're not committing a crime.
Right.
And they just haven't gotten caught. That's the key. In the past couple passed their background check. They went through the whole thing. They're like, man, this guy's record is squeaky clean. And then sure enough later, about a month later, they're like, well, here we go.
And had they would have flagged it like they did with or the way they should have with Cruz, he would never have been able to buy that.
Absolutely.
Those guns, because if they reported him for all his threats and psychological stuff,
he should have been involuntarily committed.
That too.
With all that shit.
So he never would have possessed that. So the only thing that they want is to eliminate guns altogether. and it's usually by the elites or whoever who have security and who will be safe.
Right.
But yet the rest of us have to sit there and,
Jump through
fight
hoops.
out like Mad Max and shit.
Right.
Over here is more difficult. On a gun, armed Brits on a night on the beer. Why did you shoot the deceased?
He split my
pint.
He split my point. He split me point. Well, they're having the problems over there in over the UK is stabbings.
Yeah. Well, because they outlawed guns.
Right. But they're having mass stabbings.
Right.
They had there's 2 people that got killed and like 9 or 10 others got stabbed.
I don't know if it was on your thing or not, but look, if somebody wants to kill somebody, they're gonna figure out a way to kill somebody. So you take away their gun, they're gonna stab them. You take away the knives, they're gonna go get a rock.
Right.
Or they're gonna figure out something. They're like, if they have it in their mindset, if they're that crazy that they have in their mindset that they're gonna take somebody out. I mean, they'll go up to them and strangle them.
Well, here recently it's been vehicles.
Yeah.
They've driven through a couple parades, or they had that one that farmers market over in California. Dude came in there and just drove right through a stand, and it's like, bruh, what the?
That's why that's why a lot of stores now. And my mom, we were driving somewhere, and my mom asked that. She's like, "Why are these places starting to have these? Like, there was a Target, and they had these
the balls,
concrete, and it's like that way a vehicle can't go
right through the front.
Go right through the front. It's It's part of a security protocol.
Right, and it kind of helps from breaking in.
Well, yeah, just stealing and stuff, but still also from killing somebody.
So
I was going to say, are you going to explain what red laws are?
Actually, I was just getting ready to have you do that. I went a little deeper. I'll let you do the red laws.
Oh, okay.
Red laws.
Red flag laws. So the so-called the red flag laws are state laws that are known by various names, including extreme risk protection orders (ERPOs), gun violence restraining orders, or risk warrants. If someone observes someone or hears something that he or she believes could be out of place, and feels an individual could be a threat or about to engage in harmful activities, he or she is supposed to notify law enforcement, who could take advantage and arrest them or come in and find out what's going on. Now, we're going to present the pros and the cons to the red flag laws, because there are plenty.
Yeah. And again, I had no idea about any of this until you start to look into it.
Right. So do we want to get into some pictures first, or
let's go ahead and look at the?
I don't know. So here's some quick extreme effects about extreme risk laws. Now, I got this one from the Fund to Stop Gun Violence. Okay. Now, when you read some of this stuff, you have to scrutinize this. So, for instance, extreme risk laws create legal mechanisms to temporarily remove firearms for individuals at an elevated risk or harm to themselves, preventing potential tragedy. That's a true statement. Okay? That's a true statement. We get it. Extreme risk laws are modeled after domestic violence restraining orders and afford similar due process protections. Bullshit. It does not. Due process. It does not due process. If you report somebody as a red flag law, they can, I'm not saying they always do, but they can come in, confiscate your firearms, and arrest you. All right? That's not due process.
Right.
All right? And again, that's like second hand, third hand, or whatever. 19 states and District of Columbia have extreme risk laws. For every 10 to 20 firearm removal ordered issues, one suicide is prevented. There is no evidence of that. That is not something that you can provide data on.
Right.
All right. If the guns weren't in the home, unless the person said, I was going to commit suicide, but there's no guns in here. Come on. Right. All right. That's whatever. And California's extreme risk law was used in efforts to prevent 21 mass shootings from 2016 to 2018. Again, the red flag laws wasn't enacted in 2016, and how do you quantify that statement?
Right, because they went to the Beverly Hills medium with her hair, and she sat there and was like,
"You mean Miss Chloe?"
Yeah. Miss Cleo.
Oh, Cleo.
1-900.
Your blood clot! I see nothing here.
And said that all those guns, that person was going to commit a mass shooting.
This reminds me. This whole thing reminds me of Minority Report, the movie with Tom Cruise in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the thing of it is how many times do people get pissed off? And what I mean is they blow off steam. I had a horrible work today. I swear to God, I could.
I swear I'd like to go in there and
so-and-so.
just whack everybody.
Right.
I think I've said that before. I mean, I don't mean to whack. I would like, man, I just want to choke everybody out because they're a bunch of idiots.
Right.
I know, and I've called on you before, and they hang up on me.
That's because you're calling.
They're like, we know. We've already got other calls.
Yeah.
Or they're like, oh, text C again.
It's
Right.
him.
So
Quit calling here. You.
with that being said, Gary, do you mind pulling up the one thing with which states have the extreme risk laws? There it is here. So this to me is actually very interesting. These are all of the states that actually have the extreme risk laws. So I don't. Florida is involved in that one as well. There it is.
I gotta say, except for that one, I see a trend.
Exactly. What are they? Are they red? Are they blue states?
They're blue states.
Well, Virginia.
Well, Virginia just became blue or red. Actually, Virginia's kind of purple.
Yeah, they're like
They have a Republican governor, but they're still. I mean, Northern Virginia is very
blue.
Yeah.
But
very
the rest
blue.
of the state's red.
Yeah. So, again, I thought this was actually very, very interesting. Hawaii actually is, I think, they're on top of everything as far as gun control and the gun laws and everything like that. They are, again, when you compare it state by state, they were one of the top ones as far as, hey, we're gonna keep an eye on this, which again makes sense to me because they're off on an island.
Well, I don't know why. I mean, when you're in paradise, I mean, how often can you get pissed off?
That is true.
You wouldn't think like a whole lot.
Well, except for maybe the inflation or the costs in Hawaii are pretty high. But other than that,
yeah. So this was something actually that was pretty interesting to me, and then this is where I had found about the ERPOs, which again I had no clue as to this. So it's an extreme risk protection order, and these are supposed to be the they all have wives as well. Jesus,
That's true, Dutch.
he's stupid.
Lord have mercy. So these I thought were actually interesting, and again I had no clue. So what this can actually be is what we were talking about is if I get pissed off one day, I come home and I blow off some steam. If my wife or whomever hears me going off feels that it is a threat, that I am threatening someone personally, I'm threatening to do harm, I'm threatening to go into a place of business and cause mass casualties, there can be a phone call that's placed at that time to the local police. My thing was, I couldn't find any information as to how long the process is after that phone call is made. So just for the sake of argument, my wife calls in and like, man, my husband is like off the rails. He's, pissed off. He's got a gun in the home. I don't feel safe, yada, yada, yada. Okay. So there's that phone call that's made. In certain situations, there is an emergency ex parte, which means that they can come into my house and relinquish my guns from me. Now, at this time, I don't know as to why this is happening, me as the gun owner, which I thought was kind of very interesting, which then you start to tiptoe on the Second Amendment.
That's my point. Or that's okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, can I kind of answer that just a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
I think how it's supposed to work. Okay, so let's say your wife, that scenario you just gave. So she calls the police.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, that they're supposed to look at it as a domestic situation. So the police show up at the house.
Right.
Start talking to both of you or whatever. And in some states, I don't know if you're going to address that or not, but see that the issue that's coming up with these red flag laws is it varies state by state.
That is correct. They have their own laws.
So that being said, depending on where you're at, the law enforcement can either at that time pull the weapons out, say, hey, you got to give us the guns,
right?
Or so there's this thing. So I think to kind of answer your question on the first fact, because you were like, how long does it take? Well, just however long they respond to a domestic.
Right. Now,
so
let's just say for the sake of argument.
Sorry.
Let's just say for the sake of argument that I don't threaten my wife.
Right.
At this time, I don't threaten my wife. I'm just pissed off at the world. So,
well, who's calling on? But see, so then the question is who's calling on you?
Well, in this scenario, let's say it's my wife that actually makes the call.
So then the police would still show up.
But see, even in a domestic, for somebody to be arrested, what has to happen? What has to happen in a domestic for somebody to be arrested?
There has to be act of violence, or like somebody assaulting somebody.
Okay, but if you say I hit you and I say you hit me, what's the one thing that has to be there for somebody to get arrested? Because right now it's tit for tat. It's just your word against mine.
Right.
Well, unless in some states, as soon as the husband automatically gets
right.
put in the wrong.
But what's the one thing that they see that they say, okay, you're going to jail?
You have to have a mark or something. You have to have something on you.
Correct. Now, if for the red flag law, there doesn't have to be. You don't have to actually, like you just said. I don't have to sit there and actually threaten you with a firearm or anything else. They can come in and take all my weapons, and now I am guilty until proven innocent.
That is correct.
Which is the opposite.
Right.
See, but at least in a domestic, there has to be marks.
Exactly.
They say, I grabbed her throat. There's red mark. She said I grabbed her throat. There's handprints and scratches, red marks on her throat.
Right.
Boom, you're going to jail.
Yeah.
Right.
With this one, there could be no evidence.
Right. And that was the thing that I found interesting is, as a gun owner in this situation, let's just say that, all things line up, my weapons are going to be taken away from me. I have no idea at this point in time as to what the hell's going on. And this is with the ERPO. At that point, it is, I want to say it's 7 to 21 days that after my weapons are taken, then we go into a court of law, and I have to argue my point as to why I should have my weapons, which again I'm guilty.
Yeah, it's not about yes, you deserve your weapons back. It's you now have to explain and prove that you should have your weapons,
Absolutely.
Which again goes against
the
due process of law.
Yeah, and this is, I was looking into this. So do me a favor. Can you pull up the evidence of strength for extreme risk protection? So this I actually thought was kind of interesting here. As you can see, with this, you have mass shootings that it came up as inconclusive. There wasn't enough evidence to support that.
Unlike the thing we just saw,
right,
where they said, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, we saved many lives. So as you can see, like the big three, there's not enough evidence to say yes or no, this is actually prevented or helped out of anything. So I don't know. I mean, my whole thing that I was trying to find in this whole entire thing was, once that phone call is made in the scenario that I just said, that my wife or somebody else had called in, how long is the process after the police are notified for the ERPO? And what I mean is, so let's look at Parkland. With that, once everything, the information and everything was gone into place, once that phone call is made, how long does it take? Like, who's to say in my scenario as compared to the Parkland shooter, I know that there are other people that are involved in these ERPOs. Does mine jump to the forefront of the list? Does the Parkland shooter, if it would have been in place, do they go in in front of that line in that queue.
So so my point is so if they would have reported if the red flag law was in place before the Parkland shooter, I would say I actually got 1 or 2 reports. They may not do anything because just be okay. We got a teenage kid that's that's just ranting and raving a little bit, whatever. But with as many of the reports as they had, that there easily could have come in, took all of the weapons in that house,
right?
And I don't know if they could have requested a what you call it, a psycho like a psych eval, just to say, he's talking about shooting this. He has likes ISIS or this and that. So I don't know. There could have been that. This definitely wouldn't have happened if
because if
it was followed.
My thing is okay. So there's a phone call that's made that I'm dangerous at this point in time. In my scenario, going back to my scenario. Okay, so my wife calls into 911. So, the dispatch is going to get it. They're going to make a report. So then they're going to turn it into Detective Jim. So Detective Jim now has this. Lo and behold, the case levels and everything that he has. So
no, I don't think that. I don't think that. So I think if you're doing a 911 call, and they're saying he's threatening me, I think they're going to immediately respond. Now, whether or not they take your stuff, that's a whole other issue.
Right.
I'll interject on this because when I used to work police years ago, there again, it depends. If the phone call comes in, and if I take the phone call, which I ran dispatch,
right.
So if I'm getting the phone call and I have this person calling in and saying that their teenager or their husband, wife, or whatever is making all these overt things, that there's there's actually cards now that they have that, especially for 911 dispatchers, it's like, okay, are you safe? Are there guns available? And that's one of the questions. Does he have access to weapons? Do you feel threatened? And if they say yes, somebody's going out there. It's not going to a detective. It's not going to sit on the back burner. A patrol car is going out there. So that being said, and this is even without red flag laws, this is even before that stuff. So when they show up, if say in the case of Parkland, if this would have happened at Parkland, if mom and dad,
we can hear it. Can you not hear his mic? We can hear him.
When mom and dad, let's say if the cops show up and mom and dad are like, he's nuts, he just threatened to kill me. He said he's going to take one of our guns or whatever. He can be involuntarily committed for evaluation, for a mental evaluation. Even in this, like Maryland, I know from Maryland, all it takes is for somebody to sit there and sign off on it, and the cops can even sign off on it, take him into custody, take him away, and get him and get all that stuff done. So what I'm trying to get at is depending on the scenario. Now, if your wife calls up and she's like, yeah, he's pissed off at work and he just made some comments, they're going to maybe ask a lot more questions, and it's like, okay, does he have access to any guns or whatever? Well, it's kind of locked up. He doesn't have one in his hands right now.
Right.
If she's not making it seem like it's like, I'm going to about ready to get my head shot off, they may delay going out there.
Right.
But if it's something like, he just threatened me, we got guns in the house, and like I said, each dispatcher has a thing that they read off.
Right.
They have to by law because they've been sued so many times. So.
Yeah, I mean, the thing of it is, I don't know. I mean, the thing of it is with me is it depends on who shows up. So, if you watch like Law and Order, things like that. Okay, so they're waking up a judge before the first commercial break to actually get a search warrant or, a removal of these guns from somebody's home. Well, in real life, it doesn't happen that way. So I guess it depends. I guess what I'm trying to figure out, which I couldn't find an answer to, is the fact that they have to have, they can't just come in. Technically, they can, but they're not. They can't. I mean, this is where
if it's a dual, let's say if it's a husband-wife or dual thing, all it takes is for one. If you might sit there and say there ain't no what, you're not coming into this effing house.
Right.
And the wife's like, oh, the hell they are. I give you permission to come in the house. That's all they need.
Yeah, but I guess my thing is looking at it this way. If you take two judges and you put them in, the same case, but you have two completely random judges that have been picked for the same case, one judge is going to, they're going to give a sentence of X amount of years. The other judge might give a sentence, but within a different realm. So it depends on who shows up, because there's a lot of sheriffs, well, not a lot, I don't know, I'm just going by a couple of the things that I saw, that there are sheriffs that don't believe in this and they're not going to waste their time.
Well, that's the same thing. You got state to state.
Right.
One state might just slam your balls in a vice. The other one might hey, you're good to go.
Right. So I guess going back to my question is this process. So in order for this to technically happen, again, my scenario, I do have a weapon. It's locked up. I didn't physically pull it out and threaten anybody. So, okay, the call goes into the local department. They have to come up with enough evidence to say, dude needs his guns pulled.
No, they don't.
You would think.
Well, that's the ex parte.
Yeah, that's
Right.
one of the issues with the red flag law.
Technically, you are correct.
Right.
However,
but the thing of it is okay, so they come in and take my weapons. So you have hearsay evidence that I got pissed off and you removed my weapons from my house. Now I have to fight in court why I should have these weapons and why I'm okay with it. So again, my whole thing is there's this process. We have a process that's been laid out by the government as to who, what, when, and where. This process, I guess where I'm getting confused at is there is a chain of command that this is supposed to go up. So my question is how long does this chain of command go? Again, I guess my thought would be is if I was going to do something, a mass shooting, okay, I have the weapons for the availability. My wife calls in and says, hey, dude's nuts and I think he's going to do something insane. They have to go through and do their due diligence. Let's just say that.
Okay, if you're saying they do.
Right. So it has to go through a chain of events. Let's just say I have a clean background. Nothing like this has ever been looked at before. So then it goes into this process. Do they fast track this process for certain individuals? What would make mine fast track as compared to anybody else?
Well, you're dealing with like what ifs,
right?
But I mean, because
it's like Cuz said, it varies on state to state.
Right. And if you had,
we can't generalize and say everybody's going to go this way.
No, I understand that.
And if you had, obviously if it's going to fast track, if you've had prior issues,
sure.
If this, that, and the other, then it's going to fast track. If you're clean as a whistle, and then they get a report, or they get somebody calls in, your wife or whatever, and says he's nuts,
right,
or whatever. You're right. It's up to number one, the responding officers,
right,
and their judgment. Now, if you feel that they're incorrect in their judgment, well, then that's what you got court for.
Well,
sure.
And not only that, but I don't know if I had it in my stuff, but they are a lot of times too. The other person will get briefed,
right,
and told, because in a lot of these states where they have these laws, if it is a false report, let's say your wife says, you know what, that son of a bitch I know he's sleeping around. I'm gonna get him.
Right.
And she makes a call into the cops and has all this.
That would never happen.
I know, not at all. And it turns out that they figure out that she was full of shit. They can go after her for filing the false for doing that. So I don't know if it's on all states,
right,
but I did look at like 3, and they actually did charge a woman who was called on her husband, made her husband go through all this shit. And then it turned out the cops were like, nope, it was full of shit, and they actually took her and
gotcha.
took care of that situation.
So that's part of the biggest issues with this is, number one, there's concerns that these petitions could be abused or weaponized by former partners or family members. Just the subject of the order is presumed guilty and forced to go to court to prove his or her innocence.
Correct.
So automatically, right off the bat, you're guilty. Okay? Again, and that's why difference to the domestic, there has to be some kind of evidence.
Right.
Right? With this one, none.
It's word of mouth.
It's word of mouth.
Right.
Real quick. So the person that is the subject of the order has no knowledge of the petition or order because it can be it's not necessarily anonymous, but the person, like if your wife calls, they don't have to tell you that your wife is the one that called. They can just say we received whatever. I guess you could put two and two together.
Call. Yeah.
I'll get you, bitch.
Yeah. Plus, there's no ability to defend himself or herself against the accusation prior to their property being confiscated and losing the right to purchase or possess firearms.
Right.
So let's get back to what you're saying is the process. Let's say they confiscate your weapons, right? And let's say this isn't like an immediate one. They said they heard it. They don't think they're in danger, but they think you could. Blah blah blah. They've heard you talking about maybe wanting to assassinate Trump or Biden or whatever else.
Sure.
And they come and confiscate your weapons. So through that process, let's say that process gets on the back or the bottom of the pile, takes 6 months. Well, then that 6 months, you don't have access to your firearms,
right,
nor can you go and purchase any other.
Correct.
So that's last, the government may on its own and without the accused even having knowledge of the proceedings, the government can take steps to determine that the individual should not have the right to own firearms.
Right.
And last but not least, under red flag, a person who has committed no crime may have his or her guns confiscated, seemingly in violation of the Constitution's rights and due process.
Correct. Now, you had something to say?
That's kind of valid.
Yeah.
Understandable.
Right. So we're getting kind of short on time. One of the other things I thought was pretty interesting is there were some senators and things like that I had found out about this whole, again, the ERPO thing. Some of the senators that were against it were actually saying that there are tools that the local law enforcement have that need to be utilized first prior to getting the ATF and the FBI and everybody involved. But, I mean, again, I look at cutbacks. Every time that there's money that goes into a government and then it trickles down to the states, well, we need to figure out how we need to cut from one end to save in the other. Now, usually, my understanding is it's usually the fire departments and the police departments that get the cutbacks. So, yes, there are tools that are available locally to law enforcement, but how are you going to get it done when you're doing all these cutbacks?
Well, now it's not even necessarily about the cutbacks. It's actually hiring people, because the problem is now it's like, who wants to do that job?
Especially when they don't prosecute.
Right.
Who wants to be a police officer?
Right.
Except of course in a wealthy.
Yeah.
You're in a wealtly area like Howard County or something like that here in Maryland. But yeah, who wants to do it?
But police hands are tied.
Right.
They don't prosecute.
They get shit
how would you like to be a cop in like some of these Democratic cities where there's no cash bail?
Right.
Especially like in New York, where the dude went and remember we did a podcast on it. Mm-hmm. The dude like committed, I don't know, like 5 or 6 crimes in one day because they kept getting out. And one was an attempted rape or a sexual assault.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And they let him out. It's like, what the are you talking about?
Yeah.
So the big thing with everybody paying his or her fair share when it comes to taxes.
True that. Yeah.
Don't get off track there, Dutch.
Yeah, Dutch.
Yeah.
But see, my thing is the opponents of it is because when I looked it up, when I did research, I looked it up and said how many cases can we name that the red flag laws have prevented an issue. Now, I'm not saying there isn't any.
Right.
All right. And there might be quite a few, right? But I could not find any evidence that nobody listed any of that stuff. But they did the this BS where, oh yeah, the statistics, we prevented this.
Right.
Right. But however, there was plenty of examples, and why those were there and the others weren't. But there's plenty of examples of where it was abused, and it was usually an ex-wife,
right,
or a mother-in-law or something, and some guy got his guns confiscated, right, and had to go through and had to hire a lawyer, to get all this stuff done. And now he's out of money, and all this other bullshit for somebody's bullshit
Right.
call.
So, Wendy, some of the tools that are used, at least on the local, they have access to any court records, any type of documentation like that. The other thing is one of the big things that they were kicking around too is the mental deficiencies. As far as any type of hospitalization and things like that, they can look that up right away.
So just real quick on that one. So can they say, so for instance, if I get, go and do some mental health, and I'm probably getting off track here, but I think it has to do with it. So let's just say I go and talk to my doctor and say I'm a little depressed, whatever, blah, 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 and then I get put on, say, Zoloft.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So is that now a HIPAA issue, or can somebody, let's just say law enforcement, and I don't know this,
right.
I'm asking, can law enforcement now have access to those records to say, well, he's not on Zoloft, so he's got some mental issues, or may have some mental issues, so therefore that's logged in.
The only way HIPAA can actually be, in that case, the only way the law enforcement can actually know about HIPAA is by judge order. Law enforcement just can't look up your file. It has to be done. It has to be done through illegal channels. That in that case, the judge would sit there and say, you can, if it's presented on their application for a warrant, and the judge can actually say, yes, you can go to this hospital and pull this records. Make sure you hand them the warrant for the search on those medical records.
No.
But it has to be specific. You
mean like the COVID vaccine?
Boom. As a regular police officer, whatever, do not have access or cannot have access, and that would get tossed out in court.
Well,
if you got to access that information, be like, this guy's nuttier than a fruitcake. The judge is going to be the first thing he's going to be like is the defense attorney's going to be like, you violated HIPAA. He's like, you sure did. Case out.
According to the state of Maryland, let's say someone is hospitalized and they do have mental illnesses, as long as they are on medication, they can still get a gun.
Right.
There's a lot of people. There's police officers that are taking antidepressants.
Right. But that's my thing. That's why I kind of played a little bit kind of an ass with the COVID vaccine, because you could lose things, and you had to prove that you had the vaccine. That to me is HIPAA.
Right.
Right. So to me, I can't see this being too far out of reality.
Right.
To say, now we're going to go after, okay, the rest of your health care, we're not going to get into it. But I could see us trying to get into where it's like, if any mental thing is reported, then we need access to that, because that's really how we really need to figure out stuff.
Absolutely.
I could see the road not too far from that.
Absolutely. So we got,
and Dutch, you're right.
We got 2 minutes left. Anybody, you guys got anything else to add?
Yes. Let me get my piece in for Pete's sake.
All right, come on, Pete.
I'm going to make it real quick.
Come on, Pete.
Yours is irrelevant.
This is going to kind of show a little bit about how both sides of the political aisle kind of view this. The ACLU actually in Rhode Island in 2018 had a lot of concerns about this law. And basically their concern was the breadth of the legislation, its impact on civil liberties, and the precedent it sets for the use of coercive measures against individuals, not because they are alleged to have committed any crime, but because somebody believes they might someday commit one. The ACLU analysis notes that the court order authorized by legislation could be issued without any indication that the person poses an imminent threat to others, and without any evidence that he or she has ever committed or even threatened to commit an act of violence with a firearm. So, and also it's saying that other concerns that the ACLU brought up, and this was in Rhode Island, which is a very blue state, the standard seeking and issuing an order is so broad that it can be routinely used against people who engage in overblown political rhetoric, which we talked about, on social media, or against alleged gang members when police want to find a shortcut to seize lawfully owned weapons from them. Even before a court hearing is held, decision is made on a petition for an ERPO, police could be required to warn potentially hundreds. Now this I didn't know. So the police can actually go around to coworkers, friends, and stuff like that, and let them know that this individual might pose a threat.
Jesus, that's scary.
And without the presence of, here's the good one, without the presence of counsel, individuals who have no intent to commit violent crimes could nonetheless unwillingly incriminate themselves for lesser offenses.
Wow.
So the ACLU was fighting that in Rhode Island.
Biggest little state.
So now just quickly on the political front, Biden in 2022, the only thing that the federal government has gotten involved, they can't hear me.
I don't know. I'm just making sure they can.
Yeah, in 2022, the only thing that the federal government got involved with is they passed this Safer Communities Act, and a part of that is states were encouraged to incorporate ERPO laws, and they would get federal funding if they did. So that's
not an incentive in it at all.
Yeah. So, and then looking back in 2019, Trump actually said that this was after, I'm trying to think of the shooting in 2019. It might have been Parkland. It was quoted as saying, "We must make sure those judged who pose a grave risk to public safety do not have access to firearms, and if they do, those firearms can be taken through rapid due process." Now, that's a key point right there. Trump said that is why I have called for red flag laws, also known as extreme risk protection orders. And then towards the end, he also was quoted as saying ERPOs should carefully be tailored to ensure due process rights of law-abiding citizens are protected. So he did specify that point about due process, which is key to actually this thing working.
Right.
And then it says the laws vary in different states. In Indiana, only law enforcement can request an order to remove weapons, but in Oregon, any person living with that person that's concerned about them can petition the state.
Yep. And
so it's there again. It's all over the place.
So my point is, I'm not necessarily real big on the red flag laws because I know as human beings, we are who we are, and most human beings, like I've said, 30% I think are pretty decent, 70% are pieces of shit, and I'll say it again. And I think this will be more abused. So if Trump, and if they go by that, and there is actually due process actually done and executed, then I'm for it. But I don't think that I think in most cases due process will not be done.
Right.
And that's my last word.
So with Wendy, all states should have red flag laws. Okay, so yeah, but the thing of it is that I think there has to be a guideline, and everybody has to stay to that guideline. It shouldn't vary from state to state, at least in my opinion. If you're going to have it, then
if you're looking at decentralized government, that's a slippery slope, because what you're saying is you would prefer the feds to come out with saying dictate to the states. See, and I was kind of thinking about
FBI
that too.
and ATF, because they're awesome.
I was kind of thinking about that too, like the whole abortion thing.
Right.
Okay, so basically, just kind of looking at abortion, the Supreme Court was like, so they're not federal now. It's up to the states to figure this shit out. So you go from one state's pro, abortion, whatever. It's kind of the same thing with the red flag laws. The federal government, as of now, has stayed out of it because they can't agree on it. So right now, it's up to the states. So. And I understand what you're saying, but if you do something like that, that means getting the federal government to get involved in states. So Wyoming, who allows like kids as young as 5 to have a firearm.
That's because there's only 2 people in the state, so you're not going to be shooting anybody.
Like Montana. But it's like, but still, you're going to have if you have the government do that, you're going to give them over, let's say, like New York. It's something like New York, and they're like, we don't have this. What do you. So
right.
That's
nobody in New York should have guns, because if you're stupid enough to live in that damn city, then you're going to get robbed.
All right. So we're out of time. I hope everybody enjoyed this show that it watched, and again, please comment below, like us, follow us. We are going to do some more things as far as helping to promote our show. So again, for those of you that are here that actually got involved, thank you so much. To all law enforcement, fire department, armed forces, thank you for what you guys do every single day. Thank you for the sacrifices. Thank you for, missing your family to make sure that everybody else is being taken care of. Guys, you got anything else?
Nope.
Yeah, and for law enforcement, just do due process. Don't.
Well, Thanks.
Don't be stealing people's shit.
Depending on who you are, due process got thrown out the window a long time ago. But anyway, that could be another show.
It can be. Jesus. And I'm going to just say one more thing, and I'm done. The only issue about the process and whether or not they take it or don't take it, leave it up to the states, is when we get to the issue with like DAs and all this stuff, with who in so many states do not even prosecute criminals or whatever. So therefore, a lot of states, like say New York or whatever, could just turn into a real bag of shit. So
all right. Well, all right, folks. Thank you very much for tuning in. Again,
I think we're right on time because we were a little late.
Yeah, we were a little late.
So I think we're
yeah,
right there.
Thank you guys so much. Again, comment anything that you want to add to it. Please do. If there's something you want us to go over in a future show, also please do. Guys, thank you so much. Everybody
Bye,
have a great evening.
Dutch Daddy Lover, Wendy.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Mr. Funk, if you're still watching, you didn't really see a whole lot in there. You probably turned off.
Probably couldn't get a word in edgewise.
Good night, folks.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.
See ya.